Hey, everybody. I'm Michael Vincent, and I'm a real estate broker here in San Diego. And I would like to make a movie. And I phoned up my friend Jeff and wanted to talk to him about what to do. So here we are.
All right, Michael, what do you know about making movies?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay, so let's start with why do you want to make a movie?
Because I have a vision of making a movie and having it be a ton of fun.
Okay, well that's a good reason. All right, definitely it's fun. A lot of work, heck of a lot of work, and also making a movie is one thing and selling it's another thing. But so this is going to be a big adventure. You ready to take this
Yeah,
journey?
yeah. I'm ready. I'm looking forward to your guidance.
Okay, let's do it. All right. So there are basically 7 steps in the movie making process, but it's what I call the business of film. All right. So it's not just making the movie. I'm assuming that not only do you want to make a movie, but you also want to be able to sell your movie and hopefully make some money with the movie. Is that the goal?
Definitely.
Okay, because some people just make a movie because they want to be artistic and express their story or their message to the world, and they're not worried about making money. But you are hopefully want to make a commercially viable movie that is going to be artistically sound, but also financially sound.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I want to have a completed project, and that includes it selling well.
Okay. All right. So we have to take a little bit of a different journey than it was just an artistic project. All right. So here's the 7 steps. Step number, and we're going to go through them one at a time. I'm just going to list them for you. Okay. Step number 1 is what we call development. And that's figuring out what movie you're going to do and sort of how the story and sort of the message. Step number 2 is finance. How are you going to pay for the movie? How are you going to get the money? Step number 3 is pre-production. So that is planning. It's the planning process involved before you actually shoot the movie. Step number 4 is what we call production, or otherwise known as principal photography, where you actually go and you shoot the movie. Step number 5 is what we call delivery. So now, step number 5 is post-production. So you've shot the movie and now you got to finish it. You got to edit it, do the sound, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Number 6 is distribution and marketing. So this is getting the movie out to the marketplace, connecting it with your audiences. And part of that is delivery. So you have to make sure that the movie is finished and ready to be delivered to the places that you're going to distribute it to. And then step number 7 is what we call reporting, which is potentially you're going to have investors or whatever, and you have to collect your revenue and hopefully report it back. Maybe you're doing it just for yourself, but if you have investors, you got to report to them. So that is the overall business of making an independent feature, by the way. That's what we're talking about, an independent feature, not a studio movie, because you don't work for a studio. And those are the steps you're going to go through. Now, each of them are quite extensive. So we're going to start, obviously, at the beginning. We're going to start with development.
Okay.
Okay. So the first question you ask in development is, what movie do you want to make? Do you have a story? Do you have maybe a book that you're going to do the story from? Do you have something? So do you know what movie do you want to make?
I've always been fascinated with crime, mob movies, sports movies. Those are two that really come to mind.
Do you have a preference? Do you want to do the crime thriller thing or the sports thing? Do you care one way or the other?
No.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that for your first feature film, it's going to be probably easier and more marketable to do the sports film. And I'll tell you why when we get into the whole sort of body of distribution and that type of thing. But plus, I also have a lot of expertise in sports films. I've made quite a few of them. So I'm going to suggest we go down that road. I think it'll be probably a more marketable film and probably a little easier to make.
Okay.
Okay, so in the sports genre, have you kind of chosen a sport, or do you have a particular idea for a movie or sport?
Football.
Football. Okay. Football's a good one. Very popular in the United States, obviously. Any movies in particular that you've seen in the football genre that, you like?
Friday Night Lights, Rudy. Um, those are two that I really like.
Okay. Now, ironically, those two movies happen to be very similar in that they deal with either high school or college athletes as opposed to professional. Like you didn't say Every Given Sunday where you're dealing with professional NFL. So I like that better for a first indie film
Okay.
because it's smaller budget. When you're dealing with high school or college football, it's cheaper and easier to make than when you're dealing with the NFL because you got to get the rights from the NFL and it's probably bigger production value. So I love that. I love that you're going in that direction. So let's use Rudy as an example, okay? Because I love Rudy. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And let's say that you're going to make a Rudy style movie. All right. So the first thing you're going to need is a script. Now, the script can come from various places. One of the places would be, as I mentioned earlier, perhaps you would option a book. Like there might have been a story, maybe somebody wrote an autobiography, some college athlete or something like that about their journey through the world of football in some college, and they wrote a book. If that's the case, is that the case?
No.
Okay. So there's no book.
This is more just
Original. Right. Okay. So that's what I was getting to. So sometimes it starts with a book, sometimes a video, some other thing, that you see. But this is not. This is going to be 100% original. So you're going to dream up this story, and then somebody is going to have to write the script. Now, you can write your own script. I don't know if you've ever written a script before, but if you haven't, then you can learn how to write a script. Script writing is a very, very artistic endeavor. You can just try it, put pen to paper, computer, type it out. There are various script writing programs which you want to use because the script you have to do it in a certain format so that it's usable afterwards. You have to separate, your dialogue and your action and all this kind of stuff. So there's various pieces of software, apps that you can use to write scripts. And so if you want to attempt to write the script yourself, no problem. You just get one of these pieces of software, an app, and a lot of them are free. Some of them are a few dollars, whatever. And you start writing. But there are elements to scripts there are elements to storytelling that are not just innate. You kind of have to acquire that skill. And that's why people spend years and years and years as developing their skills as script writers. So it's not just so easy, I'm going to go sit write a script. There's an art to writing scripts well. Because a script basically is a story. So what we're doing here is we're creating what we call a narrative feature film, meaning a narrative means we're going to tell a story as opposed to a documentary where we're going to, highlight sort of the reality of something. We're creating a whole new story. So when you tell a storytelling, that's what you're doing with a movie. You are basically creating and telling a story. So the script writing phase is creating that story. The directors tell the story and writers write the story. So the development stage is about writing the story. So you dream up these ideas and then you have to tell it in such a way that is very engaging to audiences, that you feel that audiences will enjoy listening and watching and engaging with. And that's why it's very artistic to write a good script. And depending on who you learn, there's obviously tons of courses online, tons of books about it, tons of schools. I teach at San Diego State, as you know, and we have lots of script writing courses. So various teachers teach it different ways. Some teachers teach what we call the 3-act scenario. There's various ways to do scripting. Depending on what you choose and how you're going to do it, you're going to have to learn how to do it properly, and then you're going to have to get the dialogue right and the character development. So within a script, there's character arcs, there's plot points, there's lots of stuff that goes on in order to make a script very engaging to an audience. But say you take a shot at it and you say, you know what, I thought I could write this script, but truth is it's a little harder than I thought it was going to be. So then what you'd want to do is you'd want to hire a script writer. and which is probably a good idea because they're trained and they're experienced and they'll probably write a better script than you will. But you never know. You could try yourself. All right. So now you have to go and hire a script writer. So you can hire, like hiring anything else. You could get somebody who's super experienced and you'll pay more money for it. Or you can get somebody who's maybe fresh out of school or even in school or whatever in script writing courses, and you'll pay less money. And, it's hard to say who's going to give you the better script, probably the experienced person, like in everything else in life, but you'll pay for it. So depending on how much you want to spend on a script, you'll sit down, you'll hire a script writer, and they will work with you, and you'll spend a lot of time talking back and forth, and you'll say, here's my idea. It's about this one football player, and he does this, this, and this, whatever your story is. And then they'll take a lot of notes, and then they'll say to you, well, what about this? Hey, maybe we should do this. And they'll create a whole world and a whole narrative of what the story is going to look like. And hopefully they'll do a good job. And that will be the foundation of the movie you're going to make. I mean, that's the story.
Right.
Now, in general, the general rule of thumb is that a feature film should be anywhere from about 90 to 100 minutes in length, generally.
Okay.
Like lots of people make films, 120, 200, these big epic films. But generally speaking, the standard format for a feature film is 90 to 100 minutes. And generally, a page of script works out to about a minute in a movie. So if you want to have a 90 to 100 minute movie, you should have like a 90 to 100 page script.
Okay.
So that's what you're going to need. All right. Now, if you get into a very fancy, very experienced writer, your chances are they're going to be a member of the Writers Guild of America, the WGA, we call it. And that's a union, and they have rules about how much they get paid and sort of how the timing and all this kind of stuff. That's going to be a little bit more expensive to do it that way. But
this is the person who writes the script?
Yeah, the script writer.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you go that route, all right. I was just going backwards. I forgot to tell you that. Okay. So now you've got the script writer and they write a script. It's going to take, most script writers take anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks to write a first draft, depending on, if they're writing exclusively that. It takes time for the ideas to develop and ferment and that type of thing, and for you to communicate. So figure a couple of months anyways, maybe 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
All right. So you have the first draft of your script, and we call it the first draft because it's going to change many, many, many times as this process goes along. All right. But that's the first sort of iteration, and you get to look at it and read it and give it to other people to read and get feedback on it. And that's the story you're telling. So now you've got a story. All right. Now you have to figure out in this story, how much it's going to cost you to shoot this movie. So the next stage would be, in the development stage, would be creating a budget for this. And the way you create a budget for the script is, and there's various ways to do it, but the most formal, proper way to do it would be to do what we call a script breakdown and a tentative shooting schedule. So basically what that is you go through, and a script is, designed in scenes, and a feature film usually has somewhere between, say, 70 and 90 scenes or something, depending on your script. All right. So you go scene by scene through your script. This is and you might need somebody to do this for you as well, because you're not trained to do it. So somebody can go scene by scene through your script, and they start with, where is each scene set? Like the setting of each scene. Mm-hmm. All right. Which characters are in it? What elements are in it? Like there might be some special effects. There might be, it might be set in a high school stadium. So you need the stadium, and then you need lots of extras. If there may be another team. So they have to go through and determine all of the elements that you're going to need to actually shoot that scene properly. And it's an extensive process to go through, because you got to think of everything. Because when you go to shoot, everything has to be there. If you forget something, then it ruins your shot.
It has to be efficient.
It has to be efficient, but it has to be comprehensive. You have to include everything. So that's why these people who go through and do script breakdowns look at every prop, everything that somebody handles, everything that's on the wall, they have to really think a lot about what's going on in the scene, who's in it, how many background extras and people have to be there, what's going in terms of vehicles and other elements and locations. So you're basically looking at the entire picture of that scene and dissecting it and writing it down, depicting it. And then what you do is you take that, all right, and you put a number to it. Now,
kind of guesstimate how much that'll be.
You have not only guesstimate, you have to do a very good guesstimate. Okay, because that's going to be your budget.
Right.
All right. Now, here's the thing about movies. They're not shot in order. You're going to shoot out of order. So let's take Rudy, for instance, okay? Let's say that there are, throughout the movie, and I forget exactly, but if we use that as an example, all right? There might be 3 scenes throughout the movie where it's in the locker room, in the football locker room with the other guys, all right? So, and that might be, in Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. So even though they happen at different places in the script, the efficient way to shoot those scenes is to shoot them all at one time. Like you get into that locker room and you shoot scene, say, 6, scene 22, and scene 47.
Like before the game, halftime, and then after the game in the locker room.
Whatever those scenes happen to be, right? You're going to, when you actually go to shoot them, you're going to shoot them all in one day, or, because you're not going to shoot the locker room, then leave and come back another day. So so this is what we call scheduling. So now you've broken down the script. So you know that these 3 scenes are going to be shot in the locker room because you have the script breakdown. Now you're going to schedule the shoot tentatively, right? And you're going to say, okay, we need to shoot X number of scenes in the locker room. So we're going to need the locker room, let's say for a day. Let's say we can shoot 3 scenes in a day. And we'll get around to afterwards during production how much you can actually shoot and that type of thing, all right? But let's say just for this discussion, we can shoot all those 3 scenes in a day. And then you do that for, say the football field and then the coach's office. And then, in the case he goes to see the janitor friend of his, and back home and all this. And you break this all down and you say, okay, this is going to take a day. This is going to take a day. This is going to take a day. Here's half a day and here's another half. And we can add these 2 together. This will be 2 days. And you do it for the entire script. And then you see how many days it is. And it could be, say, on average 20 days, let's say, for an indie feature film. So now you're going to have 20 days, but you actually know
20 days of filming.
This is filming, all right? And this is tentative. This is what you start with, all right? So you can get an idea. So now you create this thing called a strip board where you actually plan which days you're going to shoot each thing. And you don't need this necessarily at this stage. You're going to need it during pre-production. You're going to do this again. But the reason you need it in development is because now you have a sense of exactly what you're going to need and how much time you're going to need it for, especially the actors, right? You're going to say, okay, I need this actor on day 3, day 7, and day 12. So then you take all this information that you've done in this breakdown and this quasi-schedule and you put a number to it. So the easiest one to talk about is actors, all right? So you say, I'm going to need the lead actor and I need him for 17 shooting days per the schedule I just did. So now, and you're going to say, I'm going to pay, say, $500 a day. I'm just making this number up, right? So that's your number for that actor, 500 times 17. And that's what the cost of that actor is going to be, plus whatever other things, if there's travel or something like that. But don't worry about that for now. Let's keep this basic. And you do that for all the actors. Then you say, okay, I'm going to need this location. I'm going to need this football stadium for 3 days. I'm estimating they're going to charge me, $10,000 a day per day. So that's what the cost of the stadium is. That's what the cost of this is. And you do this for all the elements and you do it the best you can. Some of it you can actually get prices. Some of it you have to guess. Like if you say, I want to shoot at this high school football stadium, you can actually phone the stadium and say, hey, if I were to shoot 3 days in your stadium, during the summer, could I rent the stadium out for $5,000 a day or whatever? And you can do the best you can. And then you add it all up and that's how much it's going to cost you to shoot the film. it's a rough estimate. It's better than just guessing. All right. So you can basically say, I did all this. I broke it down. I looked at every element. I dissected it. And then I got as accurate prices as I possibly could. And, these are the prices that I'm going to pay people. And this is how much food I'm going to have and equipment and all this kind of stuff. And you put it all together, and that's the cost of your movie. And that's the budget. So now you kind of have an idea of how much it's going to cost you. So let's say, for the sake of this discussion, and just to keep the numbers totally round, let's just call it $1 million, right? Just because it's a round number, and then we'll be able to divide.
For an indie film?
Yeah. But indie films get shot anywhere from, say, $50,000 to $5 million.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to call it $1 million.
Where am I going to get that money?
Well, we're getting there. We're still in stage one.
Okay.
Stage two is finance. Okay.
Okay.
That's a great question, though. Okay. Because before you go to try to get the money, you got to know how much money you need to get.
Right.
So that's why so now you've determined exactly how much money you need. Okay. And you've got your story, and you know how much you need.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now there is another way to determine how much money you need. And so what I just did is what I call top-down budgeting. You go line by line, you take your script, you break it down, and you go down and you say, this is going to cost this, and this is going to cost this. And you just keep going down the list of all the things. And then you get to the bottom and you add it all up, and you get to the bottom number, and it all adds up to that. So you start at the top and you end at the bottom.
Okay.
But sometimes a filmmaker says, hey, my Uncle Charlie wants me to live my dream, and he said he's going to give me $250,000 to make a feature film.
Okay.
So that's the funding, right?
Okay.
So you do it backwards.
Yeah,
So you put the 250 at the bottom, and you say, now I got to go backwards, and I have to make a film that I can afford to make for $250,000. And then you go backwards and you deploy those funds as best you can backwards. But let's not worry about that for now. Let's look at the top down. So you add it all up, and you need $1 million. That is development. The script and the budget and sort of the idea of how many days you're going to need to shoot. Now you know what movie you're making and how much it's going to cost you to make. So that's the development stage.
So we're done with stage one.
Stage one.
Okay.
Unless you have any other questions. I mean, you will when we get to stages 2 and 3. We'll have to go back and address a couple of other things in stage 1, but that's the basic idea of stage 1.
From that point, we know what we're going to do.
You know what story you're going to tell, you have the script to tell it, and you know how much it's going to cost you to tell it.
That makes sense.
Stage 1.